Next, let's take a look at schedules. Schedules are used to provide information about different elements within the building. So what we can see is that maybe for a foundation wall like this, we can have a schedule calculate how much volume of concrete is required and how much formwork area is required for that schedule or for that foundation wall. Schedules can do a lot of things, such as calculating how much rebar might be required and what lengths, and they can do a whole lot more. Now, typically, you won't be creating new schedules, and instead you'll be copying schedules to fit your needs from the ones provided from the template that we start every one of our projects from with MBBIM and 3BL Studios. Now that said, let's take a quick look at creating a new schedule just so that you know the process and you know how to be able to use and manipulate them to your needs. So we'll come in, we'll look at schedules, and what we want to do is create a material takeoff schedule because this is going to tell you how much material we need for something. We want to select multi-category because we want to have schedules that might be able to work for slabs and walls and foundations and all of these other things. Though we could create a schedule that only works for walls, and there are some times where that is useful. But generally for our purposes, we just need a multi-category schedule. Now what we have is we have all of the parameters that we want to add to that schedule. So let's start by adding the 3 pour parameters that we've talked about before. We'll add those. We want to see the material volume, and then we want to have the material area. Now, with that, we can click, or we want to filter things, or we can click OK, and we're going to get all of the elements that have had these things in this model, right? But we only care about a few things here. So let's say we want to look at the level 1, area 2 slabs. So we know from the previous video that this is going to be G5.01.02. Or we say element type equals 5, level equals 1, and area equals 2. G5.01.02. Now we can see everything, all of the different slabs that have been assigned that pour are showing up here. So what we want to be able to do, though, is we want to see the entire volume and area for G5.01.02. So we can come into sorting and grouping, and we want to turn off itemize every instance, but then we also want to come into formatting, and so first of all, if we turn off itemize every instance, it's just going to say varies. So we want to come into formatting, and on material volume, we want to tell it to calculate the total, and for the material area, to calculate the total. And look at that. Now it's calculated all of the cubic yards and square feet required for these sorts of things. Now, the one thing is that this is still not showing us as G5.01.02 like we had in this one where it says G2.00.07. So what we want to do is we want to create a temporary or a special parameter that combines these 3 together. So we can combine parameters. We want to say element type, level, area 3. We can give a prefix to this. So we can say G, then our separator is the dot, and then we don't have anything there. So let's see if that worked for us. And let's call this combined 1 just to make it clear. Look at that, it says G5.01.02. So now we want to be able to hide these 3 parameters. We're going to do that in the formatting tab. So on each of these, I'm going to call this a hidden field. I'm going to check the box for hidden field, and we're not going to see them anymore. And now, look at that. In here, we can change the title. We can say volume. We can say area. And we can say, we generally like to call our schedules by concrete, quantity, and then the pour. G5.01.02. You can see this still doesn't look exactly the way we want it to. So we're going to come in and we're going to center everything. Center everything. We're still getting this line here, and we don't want to see that either. So we'll come back into Appearance, and we can uncheck Blank Row Before Data. And now, if we put this on a sheet, we can bring this down here. Let's see, on G5.01.02, we can now bring that schedule that we created, concrete quantity, I didn't name it exactly correctly. We want to say pour G5.01.02. And now you can see the name is a little bit too long, so let's extend these out just a little bit so that we can get everything onto a single sheet, or onto a single row. Now, all we have to do is put it onto the sheet. Now, that said, this is not typically how you're going to do it. And let's show you the much easier way that you're normally going to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to delete this one. Instead, what we might have is, let's say we have G4.00.01 and we want to create a G5.01.02. You can see that there are some of these that we can do that are easier, but let's show you a little bit more complicated one just so you understand. All we need to do is duplicate this view. We're going to call it pour G5.01.02. And then we're going to come into our filter, and when you want to say G5.01.02. Look at that. It created the new one, and we can put it right on the sheet. Just like that. So note that for different types of elements, we might have different types of schedules that we might use. For example, on drilled piers, we use a much more complicated schedule that you can see here. All right? Now, we're going to dig into the details of all of those different types of schedules when we do the training for those relevant elements. So you don't need to worry about them now, but we will look at them later. Next, we're going to be taking a look at legends and how to use them effectively.